Um, so again, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Davison-Tracy, and I'm the founder of Seeds of Exchange, and we are a community of everyday change makers. And in this, we love supporting each other in living the purpose, living the destiny that we are meant to live, and doing that boldly and doing it together. So in this boldness and in this togetherness, we're also super fiercely committed to doing what we can to connect to the well-being and support the well-being of those near and far. So that's what this call is about. We're going to hear from some of our incredibly dear friends that are doing some very significant, very important work in the arena of human trafficking and some other local global issues of really loving and seeing and serving one another well. So in a minute, we're going to hear from these change makers one by one. And but in the meantime, I just wanted to open our call with one of my favorite mentor of mine, Margaret Wheatley. And she wrote a book called Turning to One Another. And this is our theme for our Changemaker series this week with Seeds of Exchange, and really for many of us in our life. So Margaret says, I believe we can change the world if we start listening to one another. Simple, honest, human conversation. Not mediation, negotiation, problem-solving, debate, or public meetings, but simple, truthful conversation where we each have a chance to speak, we each feel heard, and we each listen well. Human conversation is the most ancient and easiest way to cultivate the conditions for change. Personal change, community and organizational change, planetary change. If we can sit together and talk about what's important to us, we can begin to come alive. So that's what we're talking about today. And I want to make sure that as we hop into our Changemaker Storytellers, many of whom will be talking about their passion around human trafficking and sharing with us stories of people that they love. We all come from really, really different places in this, what we know about human trafficking, our comfort level with it. Some of you have told me this is the first time you've really even been able to sit and hear some of these stories because you know and you trust that we are doing this in the context of hope. And we want to make sure that wherever you are, you feel that, and that you find yourself in these stories, and you find a way within the context of these conversations to have a sense of your next step or your next leap in life that you're destined for. So we have some people that are going to help us do that, and we just want you to know that we as a tribe, in all of our different contexts and backgrounds and comfort and interests, we love being diverse. We love having that difference that brings us together. So in a moment, we're gonna hop on and listen to our first storyteller. But I want to do a little quick technical check-in. And again, thanks Michelle for my muting. I'm learning all about Zoom. I've been on it for about 6 months, but this is my first time coordinating a call. So thanks for your grace and understanding all. But just a reminder, if you are new to Zoom, the way we're going to run this call is if someone's talking and you have a question, on the very bottom of the screen, like where the video screen, you should see a box if you put your cursor over it where you can click on chat. And if you click on chat, there's going to be a chat bar to the right of your screen, and please type in any questions you have. And we are going to do our best to get to those within the call. And if not, we're going to do a follow-up email, and I'll loop back into anyone you have questions from and connect you with them. Also, we've muted everyone on the call until we start talking, and once it is your turn to talk or you have a question, you just unmute yourself. And again, that's on the very bottom of your video screen on the left. And if you accidentally do it and there's feedback, just mute yourself back up. We don't like muting around here, but you know, it helps with the feedback on these calls. So we're just gonna jump into it, and just a little framework for our call. Each of our storytellers has 5 minutes to share what they are up to. And we've asked them in the midst of kind of sharing about what they are doing and who they are serving and where they are serving, we ask them to each give a little context of who they are. Because we are a community of storytellers and we're human beings. And I love the opportunity to invite each of these folks to share some kind of, we call them like breadcrumbs for the journey of like what got them into this, and has it been pulsing in them since they were a kid, or is it brand new, or is it connected with the passion of an art of theirs, and just learn a little bit of that so we can kind of discern our next steps and leaps in the midst of that. And then they'll each at the end, near the end, they'll give some really specific ways that we can loop in with them if we want to join their team as volunteers, or some of them are 501c3s, and we can use our dollars to make a difference and voice the change that we want to see in the world. And I'm putting together an inspired action resource at the end of this week of all of these incredible conversations, and I will send it out to everyone who's been on these calls and has been a part of our in-person conversations here in Denver. So you will have everyone's emails and websites and ways that you can connect and keep learning and keep growing and keep doing this awesome thing together that we get to do. So first up, I am curious if Raju was able to loop in yet and join our call. Raju, my brother, are you in the house? If not, we'll go to someone else and come back to ya. So we're gonna start with Håkan, my brother Håkan from Sweden. Can you unmute your microphone? I see you're on the call.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah? Oh, great.
Maybe a little louder. Talk a little louder if you may.
Okay,
I'm going to interrupt and let you know that Raju is here now.
Oh. Let him speak.
Yes. Raju. Hello, my brother, Raju. Welcome to the call, my friend. And just for some context for everyone, Raju and Lisa, who will also talk in a moment, we're just at my house for a morning chai and prayer session here in Denver with a whole bunch of people sharing beautiful stories and hopes and dreams for the world. So they just zipped home and now are joining us. So Raju, would you please go ahead with your 5 minutes of stories and passion about your work with Lighthouse. And just for all the storytellers, I'm going to ding my Nepali singing prayer bowl when you have 1 minute left. So that's kind of your reminder to wrap up. All right?
Thank you.
Raju, please go ahead.
It's a great honor for me to speak about Lighthouse Foundation. And we have started our work with Brother Håkan 8 years ago. We work among the Badi people. Badi people is a unique people group that we have in our country, whose primary profession is prostitution. And when we speak about this, I mean, it's quite difficult to believe in 21st century that we have a people group called Badi, whose primary profession is prostitution, like a father, sell their daughter and bring customers in the house. And it is very, very unusual in today's context. And when I came to know that, even sometimes Badi women, when they come to know that they have a baby girl in their womb, and they bring that girl and deposit that child and get advance money, promising to the brothel owner that when they become like 12 or 13 years old, they would bring back to the brothel and sell that girls. And when they have a baby girls, they are always excited because they have income source. When I came to know about this people group 15 years ago, I come to realize in my heart that it's not okay for Badi people to sell their children. And I began to pray and share this burden. And when I met Brother Håkan, I shared this burden to him. And together we went to the village. And for the first time in the history of Nepal, we are able to rescue through preventive program and brought 34 girls in the hostels in Kathmandu. And by God's grace, with that 34 girls, our work grew with 680 children. Today, Lighthouse Foundation is the largest organization in Nepal working among the girls and the children. And based on government standard, our work comes in a third position. And we have a big support from the government, police, and all kinds of sectors. And all the 34 girls that we have brought for the first time in our hostels are now studying bachelor degree, studying in college. And the amazing thing is, just 3 weeks ago, we were able to admit 3 Badi girls to the nursing program, which is never ever happened in the history of Nepal. And we are so thankful to the Lord that God has given these talks in our hands to build the Badi community. And the girls where we brought for the first time in the village, that is called Chuprakola. There are 700 people in that village. And the amazing thing is, from former traffickers have come to know the Lord, and they are becoming pastors. And 300 of Badi people have come to know the Lord in one village. And God is changing and transforming life in that village. And today, because of our work, the impact, the government has recognized this problem. And for the first time in the history of Nepal, government has also set aside fund and also form a Badi development board, which is never ever happened in Nepal. And through Badi development board, the Badi people are getting citizenship, ID card. 8 years ago, nobody knows who Badi people is all about. Nobody has recognized them. But because of the effort that we have put, and people around the world have prayed for us, come to support us, has made a significant changes in our nations. And many Badi peoples now are studying in college, in university. The amazing things is, for the first time in the history of Nepal, we were able to send the first Badi boy to study bachelor degree in Indonesia. He will be the first Badi faculty member in our nation. And it is a very, very exciting thing for us to touch lives and bring changes in the Badi community. And I'm really looking forward. We have this work 8 years among these people. And now, there are 75 districts in Nepal. And our work is spread in 22 districts. And in every village, like in 8 years ago, these Badi men, Badi women used to bring their girls to the brothels in India, in local brothels. Like 40% of the people now protecting their girls, valuing their girls. Like that's why somebody's has to do something from somewhere. But when we work together, the change is possible, transformation is possible. And now the Prime Minister of our nation, the President of Child Welfare, and police, everybody, just 2 days ago, we have 75 districts, state in Nepal, with the government, we were able to collaborate that, let's value women, let's value, girls. And now every government office, the Lighthouse Foundation banner is hanging on the door. So we are impacting nations. And that's why we need people to partner with us. We need people who can come on our board and make huge changes in days to come.
Thank you, my brother. Raju, you take just maybe 30 seconds and share a little bit about what is your personal connection? What fueled your fire and your passion to do this work personally?
You see, I come from the Dalit community. I'm from Untouchable.
People that don't know, what's the Dalit community?
Dalit, we have a caste discrimination in Nepal, high caste and low caste. And when I come from that, caste, untouchable caste. In Nepal, when untouchable means like dog has value. Dog can go from one house to another house. Dog can touch people. Dog, but untouchable caste cannot enter from one house to another house. If they accidentally touch us, they need to take bath before they enter, like we are unclean people. But when I encounter gospel, when I came to know Jesus, I always thought that I was worthless, insignificant, I didn't have value, but gospel has changed my mindset. And I strongly believe in my heart that if we bring this gospel to the Badi people, that God would do something. The Badi people always thought prostitution was their fate. But today, when we brought these goals and provided education, but now they believe, the prostitution was not their fate. Prostitution is not made by God. Now they can fight. Like in 8 years of time, that God has transformed their mind. And my conviction is this, that, the same gospel has affected my life. A Dalit person today now drinking coffee with Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, my friend, for sharing. And we'll hear a little bit more from you at the end when we share specifically how we can join you.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you. Brother Håkan, from Sweden, would you unmute yourself and share a little bit about what you are up to in the world?
Okay. Well, as Raju was saying, I met him, I think 9 years ago. But it was 8 years ago we finally went to that particular village. But even before that, the year before, I had encountered a human trafficking in Myanmar, Yangon, the capital, where in the church that we are working, where we have been, for years, there are, people who are off and on. There are people who are being lured away. They're being, deceived, and they've been taken away and trafficked. And in this case, there was a couple of people that I really touched my heart. One was a person who become my very good friend over the years now. He himself was sold into trafficking on a Thai fishing boat, and he spent 8 years, almost 8 years on the boat. And when he finally was able to escape, normally they would just have to slave on the boats. They work 24/7, no rest days, and they give them things to drugs to keep on working hard, and they work so hard, and eventually their bodies just wear out. And at the end of some years, if they can't continue to work, they're often thrown into the sea, and they just left there and to drown. But this friend of mine, he was rescued by on his own, I guess, because he managed to escape once when he was ashore. And there was one person. There was another girl who were for 12 years also slaving in a factory in Thailand, and they managed to, after 12 years, to dig themselves out of that. And so when I met Raju in Nepal, I was kind of prepared, I knew something about the situation of human trafficking, and I was, prepared, but yet not prepared to meet that situation we went into. When we first went to that village, and Raju wanted to show me that what actually is going on, I was really, really shocked. I've been a missionary for, now almost for 40 years, 38 years in Asia. And I've lived in India, and I lived in Singapore for many years. I've been traveling for years. I've been involved in a lot of, work against poverty and so on and so forth. But that was really something out of the, out of this world. When we went into that village and realizing that all women in this village and girls, they were all kind of destined to go to be sold and to be coming into this trade and to be in slavery in that way. When I remember the first day I saw them, I thought that knowing the situation and knowing how poor they were, not having any, just one dress or so, and they were utterly poor, and the only way they could get a sustainable income was through selling their wives or their daughters, like Raju was saying. To me, this whole situation was like, like birds, small birds with broken wings, unable to do any change at all. That's really why we started getting involved in this work. Okay.
Thank you. Wow.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Thank
Good.
you very much, Håkan. And thank you for joining us in your evening in Sweden.
Thank you.
Mr. Cory Carlson, would you unmute yourself and share a bit about you? How fun is this? This is my cousin Cory.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is very, very fun. So thanks for having me. It's a tough first two people to follow, that's for sure. You guys are in the battle every day, and here I am as a somewhat of a part-timer in this effort. So definitely appreciate everyone on this call for what you guys do for sex trafficking and putting a stop to it. And so anyways, thanks, Sarah, for inviting me. Greatly appreciate it. And to share an organization I'm involved in. The organization I'm involved in is called Aruna, A-R-U-N-A, which means Bright Morning Sun. And what we do is we provide sustainable employment to women who have been in sex slavery, primarily in Mumbai, India, with definitely looking to continue to grow and branch out with what we need to do. And it's an interesting business model because what we're trying to do is actually provide that employment, that sustainable employment. I remember hearing a long time ago, and you guys probably have heard this phrase before, but it's an economic problem that needs an economic solution. And so often with sex trafficking, it's like, all right, fine, let's go capture all these girls, all these women, all these young children, young boys, but then what? Then what do we do with them? And that is part of the vehicle that drives Aruna, is to say, yes, we know that there's a problem, but we want to help be that solution where they can still provide money to send back to their villages. They can still provide money to pay for maybe the child that they had while they're in the brothel system. And so the way we go about doing that as of today is we make bags. When we first started making bags actually it's only 2 years ago, we started making bags. We started out with athletic drawstring bags. So kind of bags you can think of where you pull the cords at the top and it gets all squinched up and you can carry around for like going to the gym. And that's what we've been using for a long time. And in the United States, we have 5K, which is basically about a 3-mile run. We have races throughout the United States to raise awareness and to actually help sell these bags. And in doing so, we have almost 20 races throughout the United States and then that is what sold the bags. But a very, very exciting shift that we are doing is we're now making designer bags. Because what we realized by selling these, like, just to be direct, these cheaper bags, there's not a lot of profit in it. Well, not that we're going for profit. We are a nonprofit, but we need profit to employ more women. So we need to shift to a higher quality product that will allow us to bring in more money, which allows us to get more sewing machines and therefore be able to get more and more women out of the brothels. What's really exciting is some of our best advocates for what we're doing is the women we've freed themselves. You know, what's been so exciting is seeing some of these women. My wife and I had a chance to go there 2 years ago, and I was blown away. Just sex trafficking is something I've always heard of, and it always felt very distant. But to actually be there and see these women who, you could see some who just recently got there, they couldn't even smile. They had no hope in their eyes. But then the women that had been employed with us for a little over a year, they could smile. They were laughing. They want to take pictures of us funny looking Americans. I mean, it was a riot, and how much fun that we had with them. And so that really what helped give the fuel to realize, you know, we're making a difference. And, you know, there is, as a lot of you have experienced with people in brothels and trafficking, it's sometimes hard to get them out. You know, they don't want to get out. You know, the fear of the unknown is scarier than the known. They can be much more comfortable where they're at in a brothel and unfortunately doing 20 to 30 tricks a night. But to have a friend who was in a brothel with them to actually say, come, follow me, that having that advocacy from these women has really been exciting. So because of that, we've got kind of women excited to get involved and help, but we need to sell those designer bags to get them more profit to move. So just a couple closing things from an excitement standpoint. We are actually relocating in the Mumbai area to a larger facility. We are employing about 27 women right now, which is great. We are also opening up a training facility to help train them while they're in the brothels. So basically bridge the gap from the brothel to actually sustainable employment, so we can basically start giving them hope earlier. And then the other piece is we are looking at what are we gonna do about housing? Because that's another reason they won't leave the brothels. All right, great, you can get me a job, but where do I sleep? And so we're going to be able to do that. So very exciting times going on with the Aruna right now. So, you know, love to get any of you involved as well, or figure out what partnerships look like along the way. So thanks, Sarah, for the opportunity to talk to the group.
Thank you, Cory. Next up, Miss Lori Heisler, would you unmute yourself and share about your incredible upcoming journey and what's going on with you?
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me good? Okay, yeah. So again, I share the sentiment of gratitude and thanking everyone who is on this call for the work that you're putting out into the world. We need so many more action changers. I believe we have a lot of action takers, but I also believe that we have a lot of change seekers and not enough change makers. So thank you to everyone for the work that you're doing. So I'm fairly new in this space, and what led me to doing this work is I have a background in education. I was an educator up until about, going on 4 years now. And there was always this piece inside of me that knew that I wanted to make an even bigger impact than what I was making. But I couldn't, like many, really face the realities of child trafficking. If you asked me what the one atrocity in the world was that I wanted to change, it would always be violence against children, the exploitation of children, the abuse of children. It's something that I will just always be passionate about. But it was just something that I wasn't prepared to face, I guess. And then when I left education, I left without really having a plan. I just knew it was time to move on. So I did some soul searching. And another piece about me is that I have always, and still this holds true, want to be a mother. I'm 41 and not there yet. And so I had to take a deep look at how can I give back and continue to serve and have an impact in the work that I do. How do I do that? And so I am on an entrepreneurial journey to figure out how my business and other businesses can give back and serve this cause, or I should say pay it forward and serve this cause. So in just 2 weeks from today, actually, I do leave for Thailand. I'm actually heading to Singapore first to meet with some people, where I'm heading on a month-long journey to advocate for kids who are being sexually trafficked, and to learn from the organizations on the ground doing this work what's needed, what's missing, and how businesses like mine can help to support the cause. I often get questions as to whether or not my business is a nonprofit. And I think it has to do with the fact that I talk a lot about sex trafficking and the prevention of sex trafficking, but we are not a nonprofit. I find that nonprofits are really hard to sustain, and I believe that I have other gifts and services that I can put out into the world to help serve more people. And so we've chosen to adopt ending child trafficking as our mission and our cause. And really my journey is all about figuring out what are the best practices for doing that. And then also looking at how can my business start small? Like, where can we begin with the resources that we have to make the biggest impact? For me as an educator, I want to be on the preventative side of things, very much want to be on the preventative side of things. There's a space that I don't feel that has been explored very deeply, and perhaps I'm wrong. So if you're listening and you know people who are exploring the space, I'd really like to learn more. But I would like to even engage in conversation around why the desire for child trafficking is happening. Because if we can prevent that, even prevent a few people from actually trafficking or having the desire to traffic children or to exploit children, then we can save lives that way. But also I'm looking at the educational side of it as well, because that's where my skills lie.
Thank you.
So that's it.
Appreciate it, Lori. Just stunning. This tapestry. I have my screen. I don't know about you guys, but I have my screen in this of those whose videos are streaming. I see your faces, and those whose videos aren't, I see your names, and it's an extraordinary collection of powerful changemakers in everyday and really world-changing ways. So thank you. And next up, we have Jessica Munoz, my dear brand new sister. It's my first time hearing your voice, actually. Can you hop on and unmute yourself and share a little bit about what you are up to? I'm so excited to hear more and share you with these amazing people.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm honored to be here, and it is so encouraging to hear so many amazing stories from around the world. I actually live in Hawaii. That is not my home state, originally from California, but I've been here for the past 12 years. I'm a full-time practicing clinical nurse practitioner in the emergency room. And about, 8 years ago, my world was rocked when I started realizing that there were underage local girls coming into our emergency rooms, and we weren't screening, identifying, or recognizing the fact that they were being sexually exploited. And at that time, I worked in the only children's hospital in all of the South Pacific, and yet we were so far and so distant from the reality of what was going on right here in Hawaii. And so I thought I would just start by educating healthcare professionals on the issue. And so I had the opportunity to publish some journal articles in emergency physician journals and things like that. And then you quickly realize it's great to make people aware of something, but then there's the reality of what you do. And back in 2010, it was really pressed on my heart as I was driving home from work. The sun was setting, and I just felt like God said to me, I have called you to shine light in the darkness and watch new life come forward. I've called you to run into the darkness and bring the lost children home to a place of renewal and freedom. And I had no idea what that meant, what that was going to be about. But things have continued to unfold since that point. I started an organization called Ho'ola Napua, which means new life for our children. And our focus is the renewal of trafficked girls through health, education, advocacy, and reintegration. Hawaii people think of as the land of aloha, the land of tourism, the land of beaches. But there's a very dark side to Hawaii, and it is actually like living in a third world country. I've worked in Africa around this issue, and the corruption here is no different than places overseas. We have a very poor response system to this issue. Very few cases ever get prosecuted. But our focus in really trying to unveil this issue has been on our local kids, American children, local American children. And because we're such a melting pot in Hawaii, we have every installation of the US military. We have tourism, we have businesses, we have a heavy Asian population, and there's a lot of transient activity. And this problem has historically gone unchecked for years here. And so it wasn't just healthcare that needed a lot of understanding around this, but the entire juvenile justice system and child welfare system. So the organization that I started, we have a 4-tiered approach. It's prevention. So we have a huge in-school education program, but we also deal with identification, intervention, response, and reintegration. So we have a mentoring program that we work with girls who've been identified and boys who've been identified as victims of trafficking or high risk for being trafficked. We also have a family support group that works with parents whose kids have been exploited, because we have a lot of parents who had no idea that this was going on with their child. And then our huge big project that we're working on is one of the biggest gaps in care that exists for trafficked kids in America is there's not enough residential treatment programs for them. It's not just sheltering, it's not a safe house. We're actually starting, we have a piece of property, 12 acres with a 20,000 square foot facility on the North Shore of Oahu. And we are in the process of a capital campaign to turn it into Pearl Haven, which is a year-long residential treatment program for girls between the ages of 11 and 18, with our goal to be able at full capacity to accommodate up to 32 girls. And so it's a licensed program. And we'd be able to take girls from other states. It doesn't just have to be girls from Hawaii. But the miracle of our property, I don't know if you guys know how expensive things are in Hawaii, but an acre of land is about $1 million. And so this property, in 2014, I went before the state land board, which is representation from the every single island, and very local community. And I'm clearly not. I'm like the Norwegian, the blonde Howley lady, and basically said, we need this property and this facility for this population of children. And we had unanimous support for a long-term lease, a minimum of 30 years at $480 a year. That's like unheard of to do in this state. So it's been an amazing journey. So we're really about creating a response framework. And like Cory was saying, sustainable, which is challenging, especially in America because it's so expensive, the restoration and rehabilitation and all the intensive intervention, especially when you work with minor children. And so we've put together a pretty comprehensive plan for long-term sustainability for not only residential care, but this entire response network and framework for successful reintegration back into the community for children. So I still work full-time as a nurse practitioner, and I run Hola Nipu as the president, pro bono, 100% pro bono, full-time. So.
Thank you so much for sharing. Wow, stunning. And look forward to seeing how we can work together and collaborate in the days to come. Amazing, amazing. We have one last storyteller, Changemaker Storyteller for today. And that's Miss Lisa Sharpe, my dear, dear sister. Lisa, can you hop on? And if you can listen for my chiming of my bell, we have to be good about this 4 or 5 minute window here. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Lisa, on the bottom left. There you go.
Hello, thank you. I had to switch chairs with Raju, who's here next to me. So we're sharing a screen and sharing a little space here with you all. So my business is Stylish Sparrow, and it's been a process and a journey for me of connecting with the issue of human trafficking, and number one, realizing that it exists. And I would say probably it was in 2008 that I first became aware of the issue. And I was a social worker and received a magazine with an in-depth article about some things that were happening. And I could not even read the whole article because it was too traumatic and just gave me physical pain to think about what was happening. And it was also about that time that we took a family trip to Costa Rica. And as we were reading about what was happening in Costa Rica around the area of sex trafficking, and I didn't even know that child sexual tourism was a thing, and that people seek out certain destinations in the world for a vacation so that they can more freely indulge themselves in this awful activity. So, you know, as we got off the plane and went through the airport in Costa Rica, I saw a cardboard cutout at the bottom of the escalator talking about this and saying, you know, the Costa Rican government was saying that they were going to very heavily prosecute anybody caught in this sort of activity. And we had our 2-year-old daughter with us. It just was very upsetting, and I felt the trauma from a secondary standpoint, even though it wasn't anything I was going through personally. It just hurt me so much to know that humans do this to each other. So that was 2008, and I've been praying about it, and I didn't know what sort of action to take, and I wasn't able to engage in it because I felt paralyzed because of the pain around the issue that I felt internally. So I just prayed and waited and kept doing social work in the hospital, and in 2013 left that line of work to seek out what was next for me for meaningful work. And I've always known that people are what are most important in my life and in the world and to me, and that matter with eternal value even beyond this world. So I sought out what other meaningful work I can do. And I've always, on the other end of the spectrum of life, I've always loved fashion and beauty and art, and found a lot of healing and restoration through that for myself. And as I, thought about what to do next, my question was, how can I connect these two things? How can I bring these two disparate worlds together? And so I'm on a journey of discovering that and seeking that. And so through my business right now, I'm looking for ways to liberate women and show freedom to women in their own closet as they get dressed every day, and offer sources of how to buy and source things for ourselves in a sustainable, ethical way. Because as I started learning about how our clothing is made and where it's made, I saw the connections of human trafficking and environmental impacts of the clothing and fashion industry, and how people who are most vulnerable in our populations where we live are the ones who experience the brunt and the full impact of environmental disasters and inequitable situations. So that's an aspect that I like to weave into my work. And I think that we all can find ways of what we're doing every day and connect kind of some of our interests and passions to what we do every day, instead of thinking that we need to start a new career in order to find work that has purpose and value. So that's the journey I've been on. And, you know, as a result, I sell only resale clothing. And I also only sell fair trade products that are certified fair trade and part of the Fair Trade Federation, because I've learned, you know, it's no small thing to buy something when we know where it comes from and how it's made, and that the artisan is paid a fair living wage. Because in developing countries and in around the world and here in the US, if we are paid a fair wage for what we create and produce, then we're not desperate and we're not at risk for being tricked, you know, into a situation like human trafficking, or I look at it as a way to prevent human trafficking, because then families can pay for school for their children and food on the table and a place to live, and then they're not going to be led astray. So that's what I'm doing in my corner of the world whenever I can. And I look forward to listening all week long to different people and being alert and awake and aware of how I can continue to do my part in ways that I can.
Thank you, Lise. Appreciate it very, very much. So what we're gonna do next is, by the way, if you have any burning questions, if you'll type them into the chat. Oh, thank you, Gentry, for the great recommendation. I'll add that to our Inspired Action resource, the Half the Sky. Very good idea. So a few of you storytellers did do a beautiful job and share kind of some call to action and ways that people can join in on what you're doing. If you didn't, I know Raju has one thing he would love to share. We have just a couple minutes here for each of you that would like to share, please, 30 seconds-ish of a call to action or a few things that people can do very specifically if they want to collaborate and learn more and partner with you. So could you guys each take turns, please, round table it and share your suggested call to action to our tribe. Yeah, and I want to make sure we have my brother Nate is on the phone for a really important closing that we're going to do all together. So go ahead. Should we go in order, Mr. Raju?
Thank you once again for the privilege to speak about our work. So right now, one of our big challenges is raising sponsorship for 300 girls. And, you know, our government has given us 3 months of deadline to submit a financial commitment for 300 girls. And right now I'm in US to raise fund, bring this awareness to the people. And if you like to partner with us, you know, to sponsor our goals, you are most welcome. And you can also share about our work. And Sister Sarah is the key person who can talk about our work to you as well. And thank you for your interest, love, and partnership.
Thank you, my friend. Brother Håkan, do you have anything that you would like to share for folks to do with you out of ashes?
Well, a lot of things, but I think what Raju said now and what he is sharing, you know, we are like twins. We work for the same thing. We're twin brothers. So I just let him speak for us tonight.
Wonderful. Yes, it's almost 8 o'clock in Hawkins' world. Oh, all right. Cory.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thanks to everybody for sure, and to you especially, Sarah. From a call to action, I think what comes to mind is we all have birthdays or gifts coming up. We got to make a purchase for a loved one. Christmas is coming up, in a few months, which is scary to even think about. But it's all coming up. So in the gift buying season, I think we all can help with some sex trafficking by purchasing Aruna bags. And they look sharp. You will not disappoint your loved ones, I promise. If you do, well, we can chat and figure out how to get it better. But actually, they're really top notch. We've taken high retail bags and almost done a reverse engineer, plus make them a little better with a twist here and there. So you really will get good stuff, plus employ some women and help them get to know the gospel. So thanks for the time, and enjoy your Aruna bag when you buy it.
Thank you, Cora. Hey, Lori, do you have anything to add? I know you spoke a little bit to a call to action, but I want to make sure if you want to.
I do actually, and this is a collective call of action for all of you. So the International Day of the Girl is coming up on October 11th, and I am working on some fun, cool ideas for a program that we are about to launch called Good for Her Startup Camp. And so really my call to action, I have two call to actions. One, if any of you would like to collaborate with me on how we can get the word out about International Day of the Girl to more people, that would be amazing. I do plan on opening enrollment for our Good for Her camp on October 11th. So I have a campaign leading up to that. So the second call to action is if you can follow me on social media and help me share and spread the word, that would be amazing. Our Good for Her camp is for people like us, change makers who want to make an impact in the lives of women and children and create a for-profit business that gives back to that cause. That's what Good for Her camp is all about. So we're going to be launching on that on October 11th, International Day of the Girl.
Thank you, Lori, and I will include all of that in our follow-up links and
thanks, Sarah.
Really great follow-up opportunities for all of us. So thank you, my friend. Beautiful. Lise and Jessica, do you guys have anything you would like to add for your call to action?
I think just a final, just more thought. I mean, we all have lots of campaigns going on. You can follow us on social media. We had the exciting opportunity of working with Hawaii Five-0. For those of you who know that TV show, they did an entire episode about the work we're doing out here and the issue. Following us on social media is a great way to stay involved. But I think the other thing is that in your conversations, don't forget to bring up Hawaii as being a hotspot of places where kids are trafficked, because I think people just don't know. I mean, even people in the anti-trafficking community have been so shocked at what I've been sharing about what's happening here. So, and if you're all ever in Hawaii, please look me up. I would love to take you around and have a good time. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
So you're saying our call to action can be to come to Hawaii. That's it.
Yeah, come to Hawaii. Come see me in Hawaii.
Oh, thank you very much, Jessica. Amazing. Hey, Lise, how about you, my friend?
I would say my call to action is for us to learn to consume differently and to be aware of where our products are made and how they're made and who makes them, and to ask people those questions when we are buying things. And if they can't give us a good answer, then ask the next person up, because I think letting businesses and corporations know that we care sends them a big message. And I think it's a small part of making change that has big impacts. And if you're interested in the intersection of fashion and social justice and the environment, I have a meetup group on that topic. And we share events there that we're doing to advance that cause. And on my Facebook page for Stylish Sparrow, I share articles and links and various things, in addition to things like style tips and how to get the most out of your closet. So those are two things that I would recommend.
include links to Facebook pages, social media too, for everyone that I have. Thank you, Lise. Appreciate it. All right, y'all. So if you would permit me to keep you on the phone an extra 3 minutes, we'll wrap up no later than 12:05, a hair before. I have invited a dear, dear brother and friend of mine, Nate, to join our call. At the end of each of our Changemaker series this week, I have asked folks that are coaches and leaders in our community to help kind of loop things back to each of us and leave us with a little glimpse of how they help people, support people living the life that they're destined to live. And Nate and his wife Em are incredible at that work, and I wanted to introduce him to you and give a little taste of what he's up to in this sphere. Welcome, Nate. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, good. I just want to preface this by saying I'm incredibly moved by what I heard today, so if I cry, it happens. I'm a business coach, and we believe that inside of small business in the United States, we have the power to transform the planet, and that capitalism is due for an overhaul, and it's going to start with us here. We also get that business coaching is dominated by cisgendered patriarchal men who are pressing an agenda for oppression. So our commitment is to be able to provide coaching methodologies in business for people who don't feel that way. And one of the things that we talk about is what we call, and our work centers around what we call a unique maximum contribution. So to end today, and I'll be succinct, I just invite you to consider that when we listen to change makers, what we're hearing are people who have found their God-given gifts, and they have found the difference they want to make in the world, and they have found a way to bring that into the world that makes their own life work. So I encourage each of you in your day-to-day operations, all of us, to be involved in the inquiry for what is the most powerful way that we can use our gifts to transform the planet and make our own unique maximum contribution to the world. Thank you very much for having me on the call, Sarah. We do run workshops for entrepreneurs, so if you have anyone that you know in your life that is a socially conscious entrepreneur that is having a hard time finding coaching that's relevant to their mission in the world, we're committed to being that resource. And people can engage with us on our website, which is www.kitedart.com, kite like you fly, dart like you throw. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are amazing. Thank you. I will tell you, I will vouch for the incredible ways that Nate is inviting people and all individual entrepreneurs and people with big businesses to use whatever gifts they have to incredible impact. Not do it alone. Let's do it together. That's where it's at, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you need to hop off, please do. I have one last juicy reading to send us flying into the rest of our days, knowing you guys. Couple hours left in the afternoon. Yeah, this reading is about our community, our tribe. We come to see that the habitual sharp distinction we make between ourself and others is an exaggeration. There is no self-interest completely unrelated to others' interests. We are interconnected at the heart of reality, and there your interest is also my interest. So what I'm going to do, if you happen to have a few extra minutes in your day, I'm going to put a song on, and I would love and welcome you to take a moment, and if you're a writer, to write 2 minutes of what captured your attention, what broke your heart, what surprised you, what ignited you, and I would love to see that if you can distill it down to 3 words. We play around with that in the Seeds of Exchange world, kind of the gold, the nugget of what the impact is. You can explain how you're moved or what you're committed to in just 3 words. I would love to hear 3 words in the chat if there's something that you're committing to do differently, something that you've learned that has changed you. Again, any questions you have. And the last piece I want to share is kind of piggybacking on Leaf's, and it's